Welcome to Taiwan Report News Brief, news and analysis, plus lots of context from Taichung, Taiwan. I'm Donovan Smith. All right, up today on the program, the quota on ROC nationals abroad moving to Taiwan is to be lifted. Taiwanese prefer Biden over Trump by a hair. And finally, our big segment of the week, article walkthrough, cause dangerous misunderstandings on China, or is it intentional? And of course, lots of headlines. The cabinet on Thursday finalized a plan to allocate an additional 210 billion NT dollar budget to the government's COVID-19 relief fund. Pending legislative approval, 137.55 billion NT, or well over half the total, will go towards helping local businesses, such as providing subsidies and financial loan guarantees, according to the Directorate General of Budget, Accounting and Statistics. The remainder will be spread across various departments. The government is offering subsidies of up to 500 million NT to Taiwanese companies undertaking clinical trials for the development of a COVID-19 vaccine, the Central Epidemic Command Center said. The central bank has raised its cap on special loans to small and medium-sized enterprises suffering due to the COVID-19 pandemic after companies called for more funds to weather the downturn. The central bank on April 1st launched a 200 billion special lending program for SMEs at preferential interest rates to help them survive the economic downturn caused by the pandemic. From tomorrow, SMEs can apply for loans of up to 4 million NT, an increase from 2 million NT if the SME Credit Guarantee Fund provides a more than 90% guarantee, the central bank said. Alternatively, SMEs can apply for loans of up to 16 million NT, an increase from 6 million if the lender sets aside an 80% provision in conjunction with the SME Credit Guarantee Funds, it said. Industrial production last month grew 7.34% year-on-year, ending 3 consecutive months of decline, as strong demand for 5G-related applications and work-from-home and distance learning trends boosted the production of electronic components to a record high, according to Ministry of Economic Affairs data. The pandemic has stimulated demand for work-from-home equipment, such as servers, laptops, and communication devices, and the demand remains strong. Electronic components production increased 23.82% year-on-year, marking the 7th month in a row of double-digit percentage growth, according to ministry statistics. Other industries did not fare as well. The Interior Ministry is set to remove a quota on overseas Taiwanese people, or specifically Republic of China nationals, applying for residency in Taiwan. The Taiwanese nationality law does not automatically grant citizens the right to reside in Taiwan. The right of abode comes only with what's known as household registration. For historical reasons, nationals who are born overseas under certain circumstances do not have this household registration and must apply for it if they wish to live in Taiwan. Under existing laws, there is a quota in place on how many overseas Taiwanese living in Vietnam, Myanmar, and Indonesia are granted residency per month. The National Immigration Agency said the decision to scrap the quota is part of the government's plan to help Taiwan cope with a brain drain and a labor shortage. At the end of the Chinese Civil War, there was an ROC army left in northern Burma, aka Myanmar, and their descendants still live there in a kind of limbo. Others also ended up in Vietnam and around the region. More Hong Kong residents support President Donald Trump to continue leading the United States after elections this November, while in Taiwan, Democratic nominee Joe Biden eked out a slight edge. An exclusive Newsweek poll conducted by London-based polling firm Redfield and Wilton Strategies showed. In Hong Kong, a plurality of respondents, or 36%, said they would prefer Trump to win in the 2020 election. However, the findings were close. About 33% of them said they backed Biden, while 31% said they did not know. In Taiwan, respondents appeared to be largely indifferent about the race. About 44% of those surveyed said that they did not know who their preferred candidate would be. But of those with an opinion, Biden slightly edged out Trump, with 29% of those surveyed saying they'd prefer to see him take office in November, as opposed to the 26% of them choosing the current leader. Now, I suspect if this survey had been conducted just a few months ago, Trump would have come out ahead because of his administration's support of Taiwan. However, in the last few months, Taiwan TV news has been bombarded with chaotic images of pandemic pandemonium and police attacking protesters. So for the second time, I'm going to do an article walkthrough, reading from the article and commenting as I go. The article is Cross-Strait Harmony Better Than Hostility, Taipei Mayor, which ran on Focus Taiwan on Wednesday. Now, you should be able to tell what is the article and what is my commentary by the tone and style. Taipei Mayor Ke Wen-je on Wednesday defended his pragmatic approach to relations with China, saying that, quote, family harmony is better than family hostility during an annual forum between the cities of Taipei and Shanghai. The 11th Taipei-Shanghai Twin City Forum was scaled back from 3 days to 1 this year and held via video conferencing for the first time due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, so this Twin City Forum was founded under the then KMT Mayor Hao Longbin and is one of many outreaches to deepen ties with China by the KMT after the DPP's Chen Shui-bian left office in 2008 and the KMT's Ma Ying-jeou took over. So, back to the article. In his opening remarks to the conference, Ke said he has tried to adopt a pragmatic approach to relations across the Taiwan Strait during his tenure as mayor, taking into account the two sides' historical and cultural connections and close economic ties. So Ke loves words like pragmatic, and at times pragmatic is a good thing and has served him well. But he's not being pragmatic here. He's simply pandering to China at the expense of Taiwanese interests, as we shall see. The problem is that he seems to be trying to do an end run around the central government, which should be in charge of foreign policy by creating his own but he's trying to create his own formulas for dealing with China, which we'll get into in a moment. He's hoping to come up with an acceptable formula for dealing with China that doesn't include the deeply unpopular 1992 consensus. Well, why? Because he's indicated he'll very possibly be the Taiwan People's Party candidate for president in 2024. And considering the party seems to be reorienting toward light blue, a new formula could be handy to have to appeal to those voters and pull them from the KMT. Notice his reference to two sides' historical and cultural connections. Such ties exist, of course. However, mentioning them so vaguely is dangerous. Both China and the KMT have for years been trying to emphasize those ties, exaggerating them and downplaying the elements of Taiwan's history and culture that make Taiwan a unique and different country from China. By being so vague, Ke is playing into their hands and speaking their language. Moving on. Even today, this is a quote, even today, I still believe that having cross-strait exchanges is better than not, that cooperation is better than confrontation, and that family harmony is better than family hostility, Ke said, in a reference to China's frequent characterization of the two sides as one family. So for such a supposed straight talker as Ke, the beginning is just pure platitude. No one is calling for no exchanges at all, and of course confrontation is bad. But China has been creating the confrontation. He seems to be implying it's Taiwan's fault, which it isn't. But it's the using of China's family vocabulary that is so worrying. Once again, this plays into their narrative of Taiwan and China are one happy family, which implies we must be together. There is no reason that has to be so, but Ke is apparently buying into it. Ke proposed 5 mutual principles to guide the relationship, saying the two sides need to meet, understand, respect, cooperate, and have forbearance for each other. Yes, I couldn't agree more. Funny thing, though, is that is precisely what President Tsai's government has been trying to do since day one. The problem, once again, isn't on the Taiwan side. It's Chinese intransigence and bullying. Again, Ke seems to either not get it or is pretending what is true isn't in order to appease the Chinese side by parroting their propaganda. Again, moving on. He also criticized Taiwan's government for what he called a contradictory strategy of instigating anti-China sentiment, even as the two sides continued to enjoy close commercial relations. So, China is conducting hostile military activities, according to Foreign Minister Joseph Wu, nearly every day in June, and repeatedly has threatened to use force against Taiwan. They hold drills for invasion, poach Taiwanese diplomatic partners, threaten and bully countries, people, politicians, academics, and journalists the world over to toe their line on Taiwan. And Taiwan is instigating anti-China sentiment? That's totally backwards. China is instigating anti-China sentiment in Taiwan. The Tsai administration is reflecting public opinion on the matter, not the other way around. Continuing on, Ke sharpened his criticisms in remarks to reporters after the speech. Quote, I don't really approve of using ideology to sow conflict in the cross-strait relationship, he said, adding that some in Taiwan are using the tense relations with China for personal, partisan, or electoral benefit. Yes, Mayor Ke, that's exactly what you are doing. The ideology sowing conflict here is the ethno-nationalist, Marxist-Leninist ideology of the Chinese Communist Party, the most murderous political party in history that is conducting a cultural genocide against minorities in its own country. There's more, but back to the article. Ke, the founder of the centrist Taiwan People's Party, has tried to stake out a middle ground on China between the skepticism of the governing Democratic Progressive Party and the more sympathetic stance of the opposition KMT. Well, maybe in Taipei that counts as a middle ground, but not in the rest of the country. In this vein, Ke's speech on Wednesday emphasized the importance of building goodwill between the two cities' people while avoiding larger political issues, such as Taiwan's participation in international organizations or China's recent imposition of repressive national security laws in Hong Kong. Sure, building goodwill between the two cities' people isn't a bad thing. But if only he was avoiding larger political issues in his comments. But he's not. He's just avoiding specifics. Mayor Ke's TPP is now the third largest party, and in most polls also the third most popular, though in one poll the second most popular. The KMT is continuing its ruinous collapse, and if either Johnny Chiang is forced to resign over what appears to be a coming disastrous rout in the Kaohsiung mayoral by-election, or fails in his bid to get party reforms through the party congress in September, the TPP could be poised to benefit by poaching both voters and experienced light blue politicians from the KMT. Officially, the TPP's China policies closely mimic the Tsai administration's stance, which is pretty close to dead center in public opinion. Mayor Ke's comments, and many of the people around him, however, sound much more like the light blue end of the KMT. True, nowhere near as outright capitulatory and pro-unification as the deep blue end of the KMT, but pandering to China's lines over Taiwan's interests nonetheless. I'd like to thank John Ross for his book, Taiwan in 100 Books by Camphor Press. I've read both of John's previous books, so I know I'm in for a treat with this one. I'd also like to thank our patrons on Patreon once again, including Patsy, who joined us as our biggest patron just the other day. And it's with the support of you guys that this project can go ahead. If you want the fastest way to get the show, Be sure to hit like and subscribe, and on YouTube, hit that bell. And of course, tune in tomorrow for the next show.
This has been brought to you by the Taiwan Report. For more content like this, become our patron at report.tw.
哎呦，就是那个台湾狗啦，最喜欢我的台湾狗了。